Hey y'all, I wanted to hop on here really quick to share a little bit of my story. I was watching the video, I listened to the video about the hormones, and so I just wanted to give a little bit of my 2 cents. First of all, I just had a kale salad, but it was like a kale ramen salad with this peanut dressing. Y'all, it was so good. It was absolutely so delicious. Anyway, but I digress. So in 2018, I had a fibroid. This fibroid had been growing for about 5 years, and it got to the point where it just wasn't getting smaller, and I didn't really have a choice but to get it removed. So I got it removed, and right before I got the fibroid, right before I had the surgery, the doctor wanted to put me on birth control to stop my cycle so that I wouldn't have a cycle before my surgery, so I wouldn't lose any more blood. But after I had the surgery, my cycle, I stayed on the birth control, so my cycle wasn't coming. And I was just kind of scared to start having a period again after all the horrible periods that I would have every month. And I would get heavy bleeding, very heavy bleeding. And so it was for about 6 months that I kept taking birth control and didn't get a cycle. And finally, the Lord told me it's time to get off this birth control. So right before I stopped taking the birth control, I went outside at my job and I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I know that I have a lot of fear in me that you want to work through. And I'm kind of scared to say this prayer because I know that something's going to happen. But I want you to help me to work through my fear. That's what I said. And no less than 7 days later, right after that, I stopped the birth control. But no less than 7 days later, I was hit with so much anxiety. Anxiety on a 30 out of 10 out of 10 is the highest. It was a 30. Okay. It was just a horrible, horrible level of anxiety. And what it was is that I had stopped the birth control, and it threw my body into menopause. And I ended up going on this whole journey trying to get my hormones back regulated, and it took months. I could not sleep very well. I had insomnia. I had night sweats. It just was horrible, horrible. And it took a while for things to start balancing out again. And I did end up going and getting BHRT, biomedical hormone replacement therapy. I think that's what it is. But I got BHRT, which is what she recommended, for about a year. In addition to, I was already on a plant-based diet, but I hadn't cut out cheese. I hadn't cut out dairy fully. I wasn't buying it, but if it was at potluck, I would eat it. So that was pretty much the only thing I hadn't fully cut out, and eggs. But for the most part, I was on a plant-based diet. And I'm telling this story because during that period of time where my hormones were just completely out of control, and it took a lot of time for them to get back balanced again, and I was so scared in the middle of the night. I didn't really want to be home by myself. It was just like almost as if every fear that I had risen to the surface. I spent a lot of time in my prayer closet at night working through my emotions, working through my roots. That's probably when it was at the heaviest. Working through roots is heavy, but that was when it was the heaviest, because not only was it heavy, I had been through some heavy roots, but it was heavy and it was long. It took like a year. First 3 months were the hardest, and then it got better over time. But what I can say is, when it comes to hormones, I think that one thing, and she hinted on it a little bit, but not from a biblical perspective, is that the best thing we can do for ourselves is go through a cleansing and a root working process. The best thing we can do for ourselves is learn about the sanctuary and learn how to work on our emotions. The best thing we can do for ourselves is to start working through our roots, because it was during that time where I was at the height and my body was acting menopausal that I was working through a lot of emotional roots. I mean, a lot of fear. And every time I would go back to the doctor, my anxiety would get better, not because of what he was giving me, but because I had been working through those roots. If I hadn't been working through those roots, it would have took even longer for things to balance out. But the Lord started showing me where my hormonal imbalance came from. He started showing me things in my childhood from my father. I mean, he just went heavy with me as regards to my fear, irritability, anger, anxiety, all of that. And so I encourage you. She talked about meditation. Of course, that's not what we do. Well, let me tell you something. That don't work. It's a counterfeit. What we really need to do is pray, and we need to seek God, and we need to start to talk to God about what are my roots, because when we have less stress, roots cause stress. Emotional pain causes stress. It causes trauma to the body, and that affects your hormones. It's one of the key indicators. They don't talk about that a whole lot. They don't talk about stress. She didn't mention stress at all, but stress is a primary indicator to having unbalanced hormones. In addition to the fact that we have, as people who are living out the health message and following the health message, we have the antidote. A whole food, plant-based diet is key. 2 meals a day is key. And so we don't have to be afraid necessarily of getting ourselves in order. I think strength training is great. And again, I've been on this journey with hormones because in my 30s, that's when it started, this whole issue. And so for the last 8 years, I've been on this journey with getting my hormones, keeping them in order. But I can say that the number one thing that relieved my hormonal imbalance was working through my roots, has been working through my roots, working through my anxiety, working through my fear, working through my emotional pain, my daddy issues, my mommy issues. And so let that be at the forefront of your mind. That is so important. We tend to focus on what can I do now? We don't want to, it's easier to go buy a bottle of vitamin D and increase your fiber. It's easier to do that because you can just go to a shelf and pick that up and just ingest it. Working through your roots takes time, and we tend to put that in the back burner, but that really needs to be at the forefront of our mind as far as working through all of these emotions and getting our bodies back in order the way that God designed. So I just wanted to put that tidbit on there. These are some of the main things that I do. Vitamins. I take several supplements because you have to take those as you get older in order to balance out what you're losing. Also, I do a lot, as y'all can see, the smoothies, trying to get in the fiber, the flaxseed, the chia seeds, increasing that fiber, water, sunshine, exercise, fresh air. But that strength training is key. But above all of that, prayer and working through your roots is so vital and important to this process. If you don't have that, everything crumbles. If it does work, it's only going to work for a period of time. So I just wanted to give you that feedback. I hope you all are having a good Sabbath prep. And I'll see y'all in the community. Happy Sabbath. Love you. God bless.